Hey guys! So today you and I are, well, we're not going to talk, not even a little. We're going to listen to the second part of my discussion with my coworker Veroon. And so far he's been telling us a little bit about how he got started and like how he started working for a consultancy agency that sounded kind of awesome, I would say. They had a really nice overall perspective on software development and things of this nature. And well, we're just going to continue where we left off. So hopefully you enjoy it.
So, previously on the lunch,
Yeah.
you were telling me about basically this is actually, I'm actually very impressed that your favorite hire, or like your most important hire or like the job, was a consultancy.
Yeah.
And their policy was literally that, all right, so we're going to train graduates in order to prepare them for work.
Yeah.
And then from like for those 6 months, they actually prepare themselves and prepare them in, a real fashion, not just theory. They're actually learning.
Yeah, they write a lot of code in bootcamp.
Yeah, and so that bootcamp is, and like that philosophy, I think is absolutely great, because that's exactly what I try to kind of push here. That investment is a very important investment to make, and you can afford it. It's not, again, the people are usually going to stick around. Yeah, sure, you might lose a few people and so forth, but it's still possible. But so you were saying, how long were you staying at this consultancy? It was like 3 or 5 years?
5.5 years.
5.5 years.
Yeah.
And you were primarily working for a bank at that point as well, or
So-
through the consultancy?
No. So there I was at an insurance company.
Oh, sorry, yes,
Yeah.
I remember now. You were saying, what was the name?
Discovery.
Discovery, yes, I had it on my tongue.
Huge insurance company.
So it was the consultancy was named
Intellect.
Intellect. Yes,
Yeah.
not Logico is a fucking manufacturer of hardware.
Yeah,
mouse.
Logitech,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Yeah, I don't know why I confused them.
So yeah, it was like the environment they cultivated. It was, you encourage to learn more. They give you plenty of opportunities.
And you had
to
a
do
scary
so.
SQL master.
Yeah. Yeah, really clever lady, like brilliant, honestly, but
Very.
very blunt. That's the thing. She was very blunt.
Well, I kind of like that. That's the privilege of being talented. You can be eccentric.
It is.
Yeah.
It's generally like if you
you're
were
good enough.
shit and and blunt, people wouldn't put up with you. But like I don't want to say you're forced to do that, but you accept this person. You're more willing to accept that aspect of them because you can learn so much from them. You can gain so much from having them around. Like it's this weird thing we do as people. I think it's like it's a cost benefit analysis. Essentially.
That you're describing exactly that's been my base philosophy. That's the entire reason why I was stating that, you know what, you shouldn't underestimate Trump, because like I come back to it doesn't matter what the motherfucker says, because it all comes down to one thing for almost every human, which is value. What the fuck can you do for me? And if you are a brilliant scientist, or I'm not saying that this is necessarily the case for him. I'm saying that just in general, if you have an individual who is proven to be extremely good at something that you find valuable, you are willing to put up with stuff. I call it, for me, it's what I call the Dr. Dolittle principle. If you are weird, like fucking weird, people won't put up with you. But if you're charming and weird, they will think that you're quirky. Oh, that's just how he is. Oh, he's okay. He's a nice guy underneath. That sort of thing. That's exactly like these different, Flubber and like these old, quirky professor type of characters.
Yeah.
That's what you're gonna have to go for. I mean, that's the only way I survived as a teenager. It was like I've been
either
weird.
quirky or freak.
Yes, exactly like that. You can be on that range, and you need to go hard on trying to have the social skills to be at least a little bit funny, because otherwise, hey, shit, you're not
No one
gonna.
cares.
Yeah, I wish I was just charming, like just off the bat, but I just don't have that in me. I'm just not.
You're too blunt.
Yeah, exactly. I'm too blunt. And I could also do with a bit of a face touch up, or like just because there are certain people that are just charismatic, like just they have a presence about them.
Yeah. Yeah, you like they enter a room and you immediately like drawn to them.
Yeah, exactly. Or they, if they say something, or if they're going to present something, you immediately feel like, oh right, this is a person that I'm going to pay more attention to. Like we have a few people, like you've noticed that maybe when we do presentations here at the company, like some of the the team drivers, like they actually make an impact when they talk, and some of them it's like, yes, you don't even.
Michael's really like when he
Michael,
gets on,
yes, he's the best.
He has very good stage presence. When he
Yes.
gets on stage, like for a presentation.
Claude
and stuff,
has dominance, but Michael has like stage presence. I've even told him that he's an amazing presenter. Like
Yeah.
he really gets people excited and engaged. He's really good at that.
and it's as soon as he gets onto stage, like the first thing he says, you immediately hooked.
Yeah,
It's-
you start
it's a great
listening
skill.
more. Yeah, but this is a skill that I argue like this is one of those things that like I've talked to a few software developers about that. These are the sort of soft skills that are actually very useful for you to have. You may
Yeah.
not have to be at that level, but having presentation skills, having an ability to collaborate, having an ability to listen, and like all of these things, they actually make up a very important part that quite a lot of developers overlook, and that is the prep work for the actual coding. A lot of focus is on the actual coding, and that is absolutely important. But the thing is, the requirements are the thing that is going to dictate how the
Yeah.
coding is going to go. So if the requirements are shit or unspecified or bad, the code is going to be shit and bad. There's nothing you can do about it. So if you want to really control the whole thing, you actually need both.
Yeah, you definitely do. Because it doesn't matter if you write really pretty code, it's efficient, all of that there. If it's not solving the problem you actually need to solve, it's useless.
Yes.
It is pointless.
And if the problem is a really ugly one, you can't write pretty code. There's no nice way. Oh, we have 5 different custom integrations, and they're all using different API systems. You can't fix that. It's not possible. So the only way for you to solve that is to change the problem. It's always easier to change the specification than it is to fix the code.
Yeah, think about the problem better. So it's interesting that you say that, because like the soft skill part was another thing that I learned a lot at Intellect.
Yeah.
So like they actually put they had a focus on building your personal brand as a developer, because I think
That's genius. Yes,
so. What was interesting there is
because
they
you
will-
are an entrepreneur.
yeah, and it's not just so. There's two parts to it. One, yes, if you have your own brand, it's easier for them to place you at a client.
Yes.
But the other part, which they actually like, they were quite pragmatic about it, is like when you leave the company, not if, when you leave the company, because at some point in time you're going to want to change things.
And they are smart enough to understand that they have a certain period that they need to keep you there to make money from you.
Yes, and so there was that part of like, yeah, okay, we need to market you better. But what I liked is the fact that it was, when you leave the company, we want you to be able to have a brand that you can go out on your own and do anything. So they put a lot of focus on developers building their own personal brand within the development community within South Africa, which
Genius.
I'd never seen any other company do in my experience. And the skills that they taught you to do that are invaluable. Like, it's presentation skills. So we were encouraged to present internally a lot and external stuff. They would like push for people to go out to big conferences. They actually have they used to have a thing called Dev Day, which was one day where everybody from the company would get together and people would do presentations only to internal staff. Then it got a bit bigger, and we were actually talking about it yesterday because Uncle Bob came up. So they brought Uncle Bob to South Africa to give a presentation,
Oh my.
and that was, I can't remember the dude's
That
name.
is a pretty big name. He's not. He probably wasn't cheap.
I don't know how much it cost him. Like, I wasn't involved in that,
Yeah.
but I know the one dude, like, he was a huge advocate for clean code. Like, all the fucking time, like, clean code
The
was
book or just the practice?
yeah, well, he encouraged people to read the book, but the practice more so.
Yeah,
like,
because
that was more important.
the book is amazing as well.
Yes, but I think enforcing the practice is more important than just like.
yeah. I get it. I'm just saying, it's a very good book.
Yeah,
It's
it is. So like they brought him down when Dev Day got bigger, and at that point we started inviting clients to come see what people do. And the cool thing about Dev Day is it wasn't like so you have your normal work stuff that you work on, and a lot of people work on side projects and stuff like that, right? So it's like, here's a platform to show what you learned either from work or if you want side project things, and you got again company time to work on doing this stuff here. So that was a really cool initiative to help you learn to present and stuff.
It sounds like they are leaps and bounds ahead of the actual education system, because this is exactly what is needed.
I genuinely feel like I told a lot of people, like even like some of my young cousins and stuff, who were like what to study and things like that. I told them, find a place like this.
Yes.
And
Dude, I think that I'm not saying this is a one of a kind situation, but this is a fucking one of a kind situation. I've never ever heard of a consultancy invest in this to this extent.
yeah, they put a lot of focus on people.
We have a few like consultancy types of recruitment firms here in Sweden, but I've never heard anything like to this extent. This is insane. The closest thing I've ever heard of this sort of investment going into people is something called Hola Code, which is a Mexican initiative for people who I think have been denied a visa or like to stay in the US, and they come back as basically they're kicked out of the country and they come back to Mexico, and they actually pay you a salary to learn how to write software.
Okay.
So that you can actually then go out into the workforce and actually be helpful and contribute. And like there's a very nice story. Like I'm learning Spanish, and the story basically goes that like the founders behind this, like they struggled a lot to pitch this idea, but the thing that they kind of got right was that finally they started to get a few investors to realize the value of saying that there's a deficit of coders. The thing is, it's not going away.
Yeah.
You need to do something. If you want good programmers, you're going to have to actually invest a bit into the programming community in Mexico, because otherwise you're not going to get them. And this is a cheap investment for you. It's a big fucking company. Okay, sure, you don't want to pay for it because you don't feel like you're going to get a return on investment, but like this, you're drowning. You need someone, right?
Yeah.
And this is the right way to do this. This is the way. Like, this is, honest to God, I really hope that these sorts of initiatives, as the same thing with your company, becomes the norm, because it should be the norm.
Yeah.
The deficit is like insane. I think in the US alone they have a deficit of 9 million people today. How the fuck are you gonna recruit that from anywhere else? Like,
I don't understand. I still don't get it. Like the requirement just keeps growing, and even though like there's so many people going into computer science,
you're not gonna bridge the gap.
Yeah, it just seems no matter how many people are graduating or coming out into the industry, it's just never enough to meet the demand. No.
And the diversity, as you're saying, is insane. Like at this point, like you could not train I will tell you right now, you cannot train, say, a front-end developer or a back-end developer to be proficient in all the fucking possible things that they might need to know in order to work at a company. Like you have to invest in the education of your of the workers in some fashion. Most companies, I hope we can agree on this, it's not about not training people, it's about we want to find the people who are the closest to the thing that we need, so we can spend the least amount of time training them. That's usually the focus. And honestly, with your company, just stating such as obvious, well, to me it's obvious these days, but it wasn't, at least not when I started, and probably the same for you, to build a personal brand, as you said.
Yeah.
That is, because as a programmer, even though you're part of a team, you're part of a company and so forth, you're a bit like a jazz musician. Like you are an individual within a group of people. So you should think about your personal brand, but also your teamwork skills. I think that they are equally important, especially when it comes to recruitment and stuff like that, because people check that stuff out. If you have a portfolio, if you have done some presentation, that goes over really well.
Yeah, and it makes a huge difference, because if you deciding to look for another job, whatever, it's a lot of people would already know about you, because I remember seeing him at this place here. He had a pretty good talk on this thing here, or like.
The community isn't that big. If it
is surprisingly small.
Yes.
Like everywhere I go, it's like there's so many developers involved, but it's always the same people. You go to meetups, it's the same people every fucking time.
Okay, in Gothenburg, it's like as I said, it's a very tiny place, so it's even smaller here. But it's not. Still, IT is not that big of a community.
No, because South Africa. Okay, like Johannesburg has about almost the population of Sweden.
So 9 million in
the greater Johannesburg area, roughly about that size, right? So. There's a lot of big companies over there, so a lot of companies have their headquarters over there. So there's a lot of people working in IT. But if you go to like I said, meetup, dev conferences, or any of those kind of stuff, there you see the same people every fucking time. So it's very easy to like within that community, and I think it's the people who have a passion for it are the ones who go for these type of things. That's why you always see them. And generally, those people are the ones who end up making decisions about like who to hire, because that passion drives them into like leadership positions, which I think is a natural thing.
It's a very natural thing that people who are more. It's a good thing, exactly. You are invested, you are driven, you care about this stuff.
Yeah.
That usually makes you a very natural next like a manager or next tech lead or something
Yeah.
like that.
So because these people then know you, when it comes to looking for a job, like you can post on LinkedIn or whatever, or you get the LinkedIn spam messages like, oh yeah, we're looking for something. This guy, yeah, I remember him. That type of stuff. So it's very it keeps your options open, and I mean, for me, I don't know if I'll spend more than 5 years, 6 years at a company. So
The
far.
average, if you look at the global statistics, it's 2 to 4 years.
Okay.
That's like usually the hop frequency
Yeah.
of a developer.
And I think it makes sense because, like, when I left Intellect, it was more so because I kind of got bored with what I was doing. Because
Yep.
it was a lot of Spring applications, and then we weren't even doing, like, React. Sometimes it was Angular stuff. Granted, this was also when React was still on
perish
there.
the thought.
Yeah, Angular 1 as well.
Oh, number one as well. Oh,
Yeah,
with the scope. And
yes. So that wasn't that great. But, like, you did well. But, like, I kind of got bored because it felt like... So I was at Discovery, we did Java backend, and that was... we were using Timeleaf, I think, for the templating engine.
Mm-hmm.
So it was all server-side rendering. And then... So I was there for a while, and then the projects kind of got similar, because that was, like, working with one product. And we got to a point where it was really easy to sell the product, so we weren't really doing much more innovation at that point there. So you get bored. So then I spoke to my manager at Intellect, like, look, I'm a bit bored over here. And then, like, okay, cool, we'll find another place for you. And that was another thing that they were really good. Because they put a lot of focus on people, you could tell your dev managers or whatever from Intellect, like, look, I'm not really enjoying it here. Can we do something else? And I know a lot of places will be like, nah, come on, like, the contract's good, we'll try and pay you more, something like that. For them, it was like, okay, if you're gonna get bored, and I think they know this deep down, if you're bored and not interested, you're probably gonna find somewhere else to work. So let's rather place you, like, it's the contract for this individual is not as valuable as keeping this individual. So we'll find someone
You
else.
can
here.
switch them out. So
Yeah,
unless
we can
you,
put someone else.
unless you have created a really weird situation where your relationship with the client would have been damaged from switching somebody out, then what's the like?
Yeah,
Then
and
just do it.
I think they were in a position where, especially with Discovery, like, because so many developers were from Intellect, Discovery probably felt comfortable, like, yeah, no, they could send us another dev. I'm pretty sure
Because
the quality
they have
is there.
established that every person that comes from this consultancy is a nice person.
Yes.
So sure, we're just going to get someone else who's pretty much as qualified or as
Yeah,
talented or as nice or whatever. And that's the thing, right? If you have a consistency in the consultancy, then you know that you can just move people around, or
Yeah.
like that's at least the idea. It's usually a little bit of an there is a cost to it, of course,
Yeah.
but not as much as if you have like no screening process or no like structure for how are we going to keep the quality of our consultants.
Yeah. So I think because they had that in place, it was easy for them to move some people around. And so I went from there. I was actually in-house for a bit, and then we worked on a system for esports league in South Africa.
So when you're doing it in-house, did you actually do your own product development at Intellect?
No, so in-house dev. So we had the Intellect has the consultancy part, or the contracting part, and then they would do project development. So they would actually get contracted for specific projects, but the client doesn't really have like a big office or whatever the case is. So you're not working on site; you're working at head office on a project. So it was project work like that. And we did actually have a product. It was called OneUp. I think it's being rebranded. It was a how do you describe? Kind of like a reward system for employees. So like.
I love the name One Up because
Yeah,
that's what I like to do. I one up people all the time.
So I don't remember if they rebranded it but OneUp actually split out from. So it used to be a product Intellect, and then it became big enough that it's its own company. So
Did you
now-
rebrand it because it started causing problems in the work environment?
No, I don't think so.
No, people were fine with one-upping each other.
Yeah. Well, so it's you could give awards like kudos to people like that you work with, and certain kudos get you points, and points you can exchange for like a day off, certain discounts at certain partner stuff. So kind of like that rewards system, like what we had discovered. But yeah, so employees could get benefits by let's say you worked X amount of overtime. Cool, then you earn this many points, and then you can cash in so many points for cheap flights or like a Raspberry Pi or things like that. There, you could actually like buy actual stuff with it. So there was the points equated to a certain monetary value. So that system, we were using it internally at first. Then they polished it up a bit, and Discovery actually bought it, I think. Then it got sold to another place. I think Diners Club had something with it as well. And then yeah, it became big enough. Like, oh, okay, cool. This is a new company now. And it got branded with that name. I can't remember what the name was. So like that kind of stuff. There was we had some product development in house. But like for me, it was just like I worked on the DGL project, and then I got another project from Discovery again. So it was really weird. But this time it was for Vitality RSA. So I left Vitality, was at Intellect office, and then I had to go for meetings back at Vitality. Like, hey, what are you doing here? Like, I'm working on another project, man. Hi. And some people were like from the team that I was working with. I used to have meetings with them again. Because like they shifted around inside there as well, so that was kind of funny. Because it's like, hey, you left, put your back. What the fuck?
I went outside of the box, but just up and against it.
Yeah, I'm just like leaning in the box, looking in through the window type thing.
Yep. Get that.
So that was kind of funny, and that was just because of the project that came through.
But so, how long did you do this before you moved on, and why? Like, you finally even this wasn't enough, and then you moved on to.
So the last. After the DGL project, after the Discovery project again, I went to another bank.
Another bank?
Yeah, through Intellect. So Standard Bank. It's so there's 4 major banks in South Africa: Absa, Standard Bank, Nedbank, and FNB.
Mm-hmm.
So that was mainly for front-end dev. So that was the thing, right? From the start of Intellect, when I started Intellect, I was doing full stack. So front and back, not full stack in the sense of how it is now, where it includes DevOps and all that kind of stuff. More of the old school full stack where it's like, oh, you can.
You mean application development and front end development? Because that's the thing. Like, people think that I have had this. I made a video about this. I was trying to explain that some person asked me, "Oh, is it true, Frederick, that you can learn everything about front end in 3 months, but learning everything about back end takes years?" And I kind of go, well, if you're just going to learn how a server works and how to connect to a database, I'm pretty sure I can teach you that in a quicker amount of time than I'm going to teach you all of front end.
Yeah, I don't know if you can equate. Both have their own nuances. Like,
yes, but let's be honest here. If we're talking about, okay, so you're going to master front end and all the tools and all that stuff, and that's...
Has anybody done that?
No, exactly. Nobody has done it. That's what I'm saying. Like 3 months. Well, and I actually tried to make that distinction. Okay, that depends on what you talk about when you talk about backend. Are you a DevOps engineer? So in other words, you're basically forced to do all the things, the infrastructure, like every single fucking thing. Yeah, that is a big undertaking. But if you're just an application developer, then you're pretty much doing the same sort of box level coding that you're doing with an SPA today. You have your own little environment. You don't have to care about anything apart from the network request came in, you did the right thing, and you put it in the database.
But yeah, I think those two, if you equate it, then they're the same. But if you want to properly, like if you want to say I'm a backend engineer, or like I would say. And titles are weird because each company fucking
they make their own.
Yeah, they do.
And like they're ambiguous. Like, what is a DevOps engineer, and what is is that you do both the coding and you're running things, or is it just that you use Kubernetes? Like, it's like, what does it mean?
Plus, the other part is like there's places like, okay, we're looking for full stack. Cool. And full stack in this scenario means like you can code on a backend language and do some front end stuff. Right. Next company
has a different,
completely different. Yeah. Oh yeah, you need to be able to handle the database, infrastructure, back-end coding, front-end coding, and
one day, dude, you and me, we're gonna get some nice wine, put on some bunny slippers, sit in my sofa under a blanket, and we will watch all the videos I've made about what is a front-end engineer. And then I will and we'll just go through the comments of all the people who tell me, but Frederick, that's back-end work. We know JS is back-end work. I shouldn't need to know about NPM. I shouldn't need to know about Node. What the fuck, that's server work. And I'm like, you don't know what it means to be a front-end engineer, because basically what it means, the best description I can give you is you know all the things about JavaScript. That's the closest thing that I can get to saying that this is what your responsibility area is.
So my argument against that there would be, how are you going to serve your pages? If you don't know how to set up a Node Node.js.
But some of them don't feel like they're necessary to understand.
How do you test it?
I don't know. I'm assuming that you just open up an HTML document in your browser with a static file, like that, and maybe you just put it on the file system. Right. You don't really need to test like network calls and AJAX and APIs and like get useful data to the page, right?
Oh yeah, because no application.
No. That's what you do. And the thing is, I want to be this cruel and I want to humiliate these people, but the problem is that there are, I'm sorry to say, certain workflows where I'm not saying that you could. This is extreme. You need to know how a network works. You need to, as I like to say, it's just fucking hygiene to know how the internet works if you're gonna do any type of development on the web.
Yes.
But I used to work with, before I became a front-end developer at my last job, they actually had a workflow where they had front-end developers sit in London and like do all the front-end UI stuff, and then tarball the code and just send all the static assets to the backend team, and then they just had to wire everything up for them. That's what they did. So they did like the CSS and the HTML and stuff like. Yeah, I know, all of that
You're
stuff.
going fucking blind. How
Yeah, exactly.
They're
basically just looking at an artboard and like, I don't know how any of this data is connected. I don't know how any of the backend systems work. So I'm just gonna represent this, and then the backend guys, they're gonna have to do all the logic.
That's so weird.
Yes, that's why they stopped doing it.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah, but it does happen
I think
in very extreme circumstances.
agencies could do that.
Yes,
But
that's a different thing. Design agency. I've been dealing with these motherfuckers at my first startup, where they like the guys who came to me. They like just showed me this beautiful. Oh, you just probably. They told me, Frederick, it's okay. We have like all the designs ready. You probably just need to tweak it a little bit to just cook it up to a backend system. I just look. It was like just a static website, and they used like the guy was very obviously not a developer. Like it was just hard coded, all of it. There was no data, there was nothing. Like, oh, we're almost done. That's what you can do with an agency. Even the agencies are starting to lose it. My first job, like my first serious job, was a design agency originally, and then they started doing in-house development and starting actually doing consultancy work with developers, because they've realized, or they, as they said, people don't want to hire a design agency and a consultancy of developers. They want you to take care of everything for them. If
like,
you're
I need this application, build it for me.
Build this thing for me. I don't want to synchronize you with this department there and shit like that. I just want you to take care of it.
Yeah.
And so the design agencies are now hiring developers. But as I've been saying, usually you can get away with these sorts of things in a design agency because the projects that you're working on are very low complexity level, usually. Yeah. It's not, you don't measure your project delivery cycle, delivery lifespan in several years. You're talking about maybe at the most a few months, a year, maybe 2 years. If you're, and then you're, even then I would say that you're almost above this like agency level. Like then you're actually a proper consultant.
Yeah, because imagine most agencies I've never worked on, but like if you
proof of concept things, they do like demos, expos, tons of this different stuff.
And even like so. Marketing sites, those look really amazing.
Yeah.
But it's all
landing pages, like home pages for business owners.
Yeah,
looks graphically amazing, but low complexity on the back end.
Yes, because I mean the thing is, their audio complexity is like animations. So not to say agencies don't have good devs working there in terms of like the front end stuff, but they concentrate on like making it look pretty, how
visually
data binding and stuff would work, like how you manage state and that kind of stuff. It's not a concern for them because it's not a concern for them. Like they don't need to worry about that.
Not all the time, at least. Like that's when I was working at that agency. I mean, they had some serious backend devs, like guys who, but they were not working on these sorts of projects. They had consultants who were working on like very UI heavy applications. They were amazing front end developers, and I mean they usually use Node on the back end, and then you had the really hardcore backend devs they worked on Android projects or like mobile. They had mobile people as well, so they had different types of flavors of developers.
Okay,
but they also worked on projects for like Volvo and like things of this nature where they're actually required. Like they did they did like even mechanical engineering for some of the proof of concepts, like setting up like things in the actual car, because that's something that Volvo outsourced for these specific projects.
That's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, which is pretty cool. I mean, the company's still around, and I still know people there. But what I'm saying is that when they were working with, like, what they were starting with was this exact thing as I was saying. Like, they had designers, and they realized that, shit, we can't sell our designs anymore when we're doing UI work, and we want to expand into IT. So we need to hire some front-end developers or people who can, make some animations and create a basic website, and that just looks really nice. But the serious development, like the really hardcore stuff, they don't really take care of that unless it's to the specific backend developers.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense because, like, that's not their primary business, but it still is.
It's still good business.
Yeah, it is.
It's the thing I've been saying so long. Like it's not you're working for an agency. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that it's different levels of development that is taking place.
Yeah.
You might have. I mean, here, if you were to take in like a graphics design major who's been like reading code for his entire life, who's gonna come here and think that he's gonna be able to stretch his creative wings? It's not gonna happen.
No, it's very different requirements. Because here it's more about the application integration, that kind of part there. The design part is it should look, I'm gonna say, decent.
Professional, I would say.
That's a better word. That's a much better word. It shouldn't look broken or anything like that. No. But you're not gonna have the fancy stuff. I would say I'm a little envious of guys who work at design agencies because you get to do really fun stuff.
Because you have the time and it's encouraged because you know that you like these small projects, that's what's gonna sell.
Yeah.
How great does it look? I mean, that company I was working for, they did major stuff, like really cool stuff with like the caravan system for Volvo's car systems, like showing like expos, like awesome cool things. You could stand with a tablet and like swipe a car that would go out into a lane and start like on two big flat screen TVs and just drive around and like simulate
really cool
the system.
to build. It's
exactly.
really fun.
It took like months for them to build it. It was super advanced, but it lived for one expo.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what they used it for because hey, there's a ton of money in these car manufacturers' different expos and like and then showcase new things.
I wonder, like, so with your experience there, like, so if you're doing application development, you try and look at like how much code you can reuse, move over to the next part of
you try to go for sustainability because you know this stuff is going to stick around.
So I imagine design it's not like that.
Oh shit! No, when
it's like you build it just get the fucking thing to work.
This job was the toughest job I've ever had. Like because I was a junior, like I was educated as a Java developer. Like this was all about it was all about sustainability and testing, test-driven development. Like I had the mindset of like a die-hard Java developer, enterprise thing. Go into an agency, the first thing I did. Exactly. I was like completely mind-boggling to me, and then I had to inherit a code base from some dudes that were like that.
Okay.
And shit, dude, the code was so bad. Like I had no help. Like even the dudes who were doing it, who had made it, was like, I don't really remember how this is supposed to work. I was so out of my depth. I was insane, right? But this is what I'm saying. Like you can sustain your business this way if your project is truly just going to survive for a few months, for a few weeks, whatever it is. And then that's kind of the end of the story. But if you're going to work at a company such as Google, Facebook, this company, Volvo, like doesn't really matter. If you have long-spanning projects, the requirements on you when it comes to technical skills and soft skills and so forth usually go up. I think it's fair to say that it may, depending on the agency, you might find that the requirements on your front-end skills or your graphical skills might be very high in an agency in comparison to other places, but you might also find that the overall requirements on like work practices and like doing things well and so forth is fucking low in comparison. And then there are agencies that they just flat have really low requirements in general because the work that they do isn't all that complicated.
I think maybe it comes down to like, it's like going back to that requirements thing. The requirements are very different, so
yes.
You have to solve that specific problem.
Yeah, and as long as you as a developer understand the differences, and that's kind of the thing that I'm trying to push with like some of the stuff that I'm doing here. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to make it clear so that you understand that if you can have a hacky Wild West type of attitude if you're working on projects that is gonna just it's not going to go over a few hundred lines of code, maybe a few thousand. That's it, and then it's just going to stay that way. Then fucking hack it together. The deadline is more important. But if you're going to go for something that's an entire company is going to build their backbone on, you're going to have a different mindset. You can't have a Wild West attitude in a company where this shit is going to be maintained for years, most likely.
Especially like, what's that saying? When you're writing code, imagine that the next person who has to look at it knows where you live.
That's a very good saying.
I'm paraphrasing. It's something like that there. But essentially it comes down to that. Like, because if you're working in a company where it's team-based work, then you need that testing frameworks and the code quality standard needs to be higher.
That bigger perspective on like
Yeah.
how does the thing that I'm doing right now fit into all of this? It's not just another project, and that's the one I think that why some of the prejudices against consultants exist, where the product guys usually say that the consultants, they're just fucking hacks, all of them. They just ship shit because they know like in 6 months I'm not going to be here anymore. I'm going to do the next thing.
Well, hopefully consultancy will not write code that way. if you are,
Hopefully,
then
but
I
there's
would
enough.
say you should change your approach, because this comes back to the way intellect trained the people. Like you were taught to write code as if you had to maintain it. You were never. I think it comes from because people place
Probably
that
because
clients,
they didn't want that label that you only have, like, if you have intellect people, they're gonna hack it together.
Yeah, well, it was that part, and the other thing is a lot of they were aiming for long-term relationships with clients. So you can't have a long-term relationship if you don't have the people there for a while. So if you're writing code with somewhere in the back of your head knowing that, okay, I'm going to be here for like 2 years, then you have to deal with that stuff in 2 years' time. So you don't want to fuck yourself over, essentially.
Yeah, and that makes sense. But you did leave intellect. You went to a bank, and
I didn't leave it. I got placed at a bank with intellect.
Yeah.
that was the last client I went to. And
before
then
you started here, because that was the bank you were working for before you came here.
No, I went to a startup before that.
Okay.
Before I came here. So I was at Bank again doing Java dev. So I think at that point I realized like I'm not really gonna be able to do much more given the clientele that intellect has. So I was like, okay, let's try something different. And I just started learning about Scala. I hadn't done any Scala dev before that. I was like, okay, more so functional programming as a whole. I never really gotten into it, and I got interested in it through React because of the way React does stuff. Like it was like, this seems like such a good way to do things.
I'll spoil it. One of the few tech talks I've done here in Gothenburg was literally the whole point was React is functional programming.
Yeah,
or
and
the principles are built on functional programming.
So that got my interest in it because I started playing around with React. I was like, oh, I really like how they do things.
Yeah,
like
composition, and yeah.
all of that kind of stuff there. Like, and I'd only done OOP before this, so it was new concepts to me, but very interesting concepts. So then I decided at that point, I'm gonna try and get a job in functional programming because I want to learn more. And then the company I joined, Gemset, I was really lucky because I got hired to learn Scala. Like they knew I had no Scala development experience beforehand. They're like, we'll pay you to learn Scala. I was like, fucking hey, I'm in. Like that is
What
perfect.
the fuck, dude? Has your entire life just been one big fucking just easy ride? Like, oh my...
I've been lucky. I have
That
been
is...
I think
There are people who would murder to get this opportunity.
yeah. So that one was pretty cool. It had to do. There was definitely luck involved because the timing was they got acquired, so they were in that scale up stage now.
Desperation is a very like people open their wallets when they're desperate.
I don't think it was complete. I think I saw myself well in
Okay,
interview.
you are a likable-ish person.
Yeah. Nobody wants to kill me that I know of, so at least that's I got that going for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I started learning Scala there. I think what helped me there was the front-end skills that I built up. So the one thing which I learned early on when I started at Intellect, and I guess I observed it when I was at Epsa even, was a lot of devs don't give a fuck about CSS, right? Like it's just like they'll get the styling to work, but like truly understanding how CSS works, and even front-end devs that I know who like it'll look right like this, but understanding like the proper way cascading works and like how things influence each other, it was a gap which I noticed in some of the jobs when I started off. Like I said, when I was at Epsa, because I saw what the front-end people they were doing. Not saying everybody, but it was generally. When I started at Discovery, I put time on learning CSS properly.
I did the same thing.
And it really gave me a value. And I think it comes down more to like, when I was working there, I noticed there was a gap. Right, like nobody really knew how to do CSS properly. They could get things to work, it'll kind of look right, but it's wonky and it'll be, it doesn't really work really well. Because there was also a time where things are moving over to more responsive stuff. Nobody knew how to do responsive design. So I was like, cool, I'm going to learn these things.
It's the standard. Today it's like you all of us.
Mobile first is generally good practice.
Yes.
So I paid time to focus on that aspect, and then that helped me get a good name within the company. So when it came to like getting not recommendations. What's this thing called?
Endorsement?
Endorsements and
Referral?
Thank you, referral. Right, referrals. I generally could get really good referrals because like I was the problem solver guy in that space.
Yeah.
So
You
like,
become an expert of something that most people find difficult.
yes,
That's
and-
why I wanted to learn. I wanted to master JavaScript because, as my loving coworkers like to say, "Oh, it's a shit," and I say, "I'm going to be a master of the shit." That's what I'm going to do.
No, it's good. It's good. And I think it's a good. Like if you can do that, you kind of become indispensable to the company that you are. Which is
Everybody
great.
depends on it. Everybody hates it, and you're the one guy who knows everything.
Yes. So like it's it gives you like really good job security. Kind of good.
I
leverage.
got this job just because I know Webpack. I swear. There was not my fancy my coding skills. I promise you that.
And then I got you, and you fucking dumped it on me.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yes, but I need to progress my career.
Oh, okay,
so
cool.
now you are the Webpack guy. I got in on the Webpack thing, and now I'm just trying to not fuck up anymore. That's my.
So you're in a comfortable space now.
Yes, I'm in my corner over there. Nobody really knows that I'm here. So as long as I keep my head down, everything's gonna be fine.
Yeah.
Who are you gonna lump over the Webpack? We're not gonna get into that because that's gonna be awful.
No, because then the next, like, if anybody hears us who's gonna be coming here for an interview, like, no, I don't want to do the Webpack thing, man.
Just exactly. You
gotta surprise them with it.
do what I did to you. Just wait for that one dude who comes in like he's fresh and he's got these big blue eyes and he's gonna say, "Oh, we need to fix this. This is really ugly." And you go, "Yeah, go and fix it.
Do it.
Tie your name to the Webpack configuration so you become the owner, and then I'll just
Yeah, if
shuffle.
you annotate and your name is that, you're fucked.
You're fucked. Exactly, because as soon as I go and check the Git blame, I'll see your name and I'm gonna come to you. Yes.
But yeah, I think like you said, finding that niche thing was
It's a very good career move.
it's a brilliant career move.
As long as you know, the thing is, being an expert can also be dangerous. You have to be an expert in the right thing. Like
Yeah.
nobody's gonna care about you if you're like an expert in something nobody uses.
Yeah. So for me, like CSS came up because I noticed it was like this thing that nobody really cared about. It was like
They just want it to work. They
this
don't.
weird child they kept in the corner. Like, yeah, we'll feed it once in a while just to make sure it doesn't die. But
And
nobody's
append a
really
few,
nourishing
like,
it.
oh, it's getting bothersome. Let's append a few rules.
Yeah,
to
just
override.
like
Yeah, because CSS is append only. We all know that.
yeah, there's no like, oh, let's fix the rules. So that I took with me throughout my career. So at Discovery, I became like the front end guy on the team there. And then when I went to the other projects, I kept doing that. And I think the other part was I didn't want to lose any connection to UX, so I still tried to be involved with design and that kind of stuff. Like I did graphic design on the DGL project because we needed.
You are a polyglot. Like you've been everywhere.
I like that approach. I'm trying to stick with that. But the DGL one was kind of funny because there was actually a graphic design company that they hired to do some work with. And I'm really proud of this moment because like we did icons and I did the icons quickly because we needed to test for this stuff, and they picked my icons over the graphic design company. So yeah, I'm awesome when this thing.
Personal victory.
It was, but like it's probably the only time that'll ever happen. Like my graphic design skills are not that
Take
great.
that and run with it.
Oh, yeah, but
You-
I'm
yeah, remember
keeping
that
that
until the
victory,
day
yeah.
you die. Just
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. Like just fuck. Like if it's gonna happen again, it happened.
Yeah, one time is enough. So that was a cool moment with that. But I tried to keep like, so and because of I became the front end guy, I had to now keep up with being the front end guy. Like it's like
You're gonna stretch yourself thin.
yeah, like
How are
if
you
I
gonna
just
keep up everything?
if I just kept with what I knew at that point when I became the front end guy, for example, or in this case here with Discovery, like I wouldn't have been able to handle any new problems as things changed. I would have been like if they came and asked me a question, I wanted to be able to answer that.
You're
then
gonna
that
get
drove me-
complacent or outdated.
Yeah, and you definitely don't want that in dev. So
Especially not in front end. Like in front end, like you pretty much need to know about every fucking thing.
yeah, so I just kept reading and then like watching videos. I kept focusing that thing, and I think it, like just doing that to make sure I was ahead of the curve all the time, it actually created a good habit that I stay ahead of the curve, or at least I try to stay ahead of the curve all the time.
That's how you keep on being a guru or an expert or whatever you want to call yourself.
Yeah, well, I don't know, expert, guru.
Oh yeah,
But
now that
competent
humbleness
enough-
is coming out. You have a background in real systems development, so the backend developers are okay with tolerating you because you actually know what they're saying. But at the same time, you also know this magic called frontend that nobody knows about. So you're like a little bit of a wizard. You're okay to fit in.
Yeah, so I put more focus on the front end, but I did try and do back end stuff, but it's kind of like back end and back end.
As long as you know how they think, and as long as you can talk the lingo and kind
Yeah.
of show that you know how you get it, they're usually fine with you.
The main thing is that database stuff was probably is like SQL database is not a strong point for me. It's still something which I haven't put time in because it hasn't really come up. It's like because like in Spring we used to use
Hibernate,
yes. And
which
you
is
can
like
write
the
queries.
standard.
Yeah, and then you write. No, there was a Spring library where you don't have to structure SQL queries.
No, they
You
auto
just-
generate. Spring Boot has that by default, where they're or
Yeah,
so you give them an interface and they just generate all the
Yeah,
queries.
and depending on how you name your
Yes.
your function, it'll generate the query. For
It
you.
will generate everything. For
So, I love that because I didn't have to worry about the database
Yep.
stuff. So I avoided the DB side, but I knew how network requests and that kind of stuff work. I knew how hardware controllers and that kind of stuff. So I picked up a little bit of things, but because I focused on the front end side more, there was always that. Oh, okay, cool. We'll just give it to him. Handle the stuff here. And then I managed to start making more decisions on how we did front end. So I built that up just by fucking like, and it literally started with me like focusing on CSS, and then just like that grew into like now I was basically the front end architect at the point. So like that's like one small fucking thing, CSS, and then that's how my career grew into a much more sustainable one. And you just kept reading about all stuff.
I would say that you had a bit of preparation up until that point, but yes, that's
yeah, it didn't just like happen like learn CSS. Now you're the front end guy.
no, exactly. There was a little bit of experience
there's
going
a couple,
on.
there's a couple of steps in
We
between.
don't want to misguide any.
Yeah. It's not to say like if you learn CSS you're gonna be set for life. It's
They're gonna laugh in your face if you come into a technical interview and say, "I know CSS,"
Yeah.
and you're like, "Okay, but what about all the other stuff?"
yeah. But like with that, it just as long as you keep learning what I wouldn't even say the latest stuff, but the most important stuff that's in industry practice at that time.
You need to be in the sweet spot, as I call it.
Mm.
There is no need for you to go on the bleeding edge, cutting edge, learning like every single little obscure library that comes down your path. It's about figuring out what has been adopted or what is about to get adopted and making good investments based on that.
Yeah.
And just not jumping on every fucking train, because there is always going in front end, like every other library gets some popularity.
Yeah.
But it's not about some popularity, it's about what's the most likely thing that you're going to face out in the wild. What are people actually using?
There is some benefit though to like don't learn every big one, every one that comes out, but understand what kind of problems they solve, because there could be a better tool out there than what you're using,
and you might actually figure out that the value that the problem it's solving is not that big of a problem. You might actually be able to do it yourself.
you could do it yourself, but then it comes down to like, is it worth doing it yourself based on
I swear I have not given him a script, because like I said all of the things that you're saying right now, so I don't know how many times.
yeah. Well, I think it's a pragmatic way of thinking, which
Yes,
I think
and usually
you
this is
follow.
the thing. This is why I say that this is the difference between professional developers and people who write some blogs, because usually it's not that hard to get another fellow person who's actually working in the industry to align with you. Usually they have, because it's the same fucking experience, you kind of know. And it's just, you usually get into fisty fights about these libraries with people who seem to not actually work with everybody else.
Like one expert in something, and then they just
because
this is the thing to use for
Did you
alternatives.
know that Svelte is taking over the world? Yeah, it's not React, it's Svelte. I swear.
Fuck is it?
Exactly. Thank you! Thank you! Oh my god, what the fuck is that? Yes, what the fuck is that? That's great.
Yeah.
You're getting old, dude. You're so outdated.
Clearly I need to start reading up again.
Yeah.
That has changed recently though, because I think now it's I know I don't spend as much time reading up and stuff as I used to. Definitely, because like
Everybody gets complacent. Everybody.
it's not so much a complacency thing. It's more like my priority. Like I'd rather spend more time with charms and that.
Exactly,
kind
but
of stuff.
that's what I'm calling. I'm sorry. I'm using complacent in a loving way. I'm stating that at some point you will mature so much as a developer that you will realize that there's maybe 100 things that come out every single day, and maybe one every other week is worth actually learning.
Yeah.
It's not like, that's the thing with front end, you may think that, oh shit, I need to learn all these things and they're always coming out. No, because once you actually settle into your experiences and you start to understand how the industry works and how development actually works, you will start to spot, okay, this is not going to go anywhere, that's not going to go anywhere, that's not, but that thing there, I'm going to keep an eye on that because that does show some promise. And you get a sensation for these things. It's like being a stockbroker investor or something. Like you kind of know what stocks are going to go.
Yeah, you get that intuition.
Yeah, exactly. A sixth sense.
But I think if you're going to do that, you have to start by doing everything. You have to
Yes,
start by
you have to go wide first.
Because you need to build that intuition.
Yes, you have to fuck up so many times that you kind of, oh shit, that's a really bad idea. This is a good idea. You have to. That's what the experience is about.